The massive alien fleet moved through space like a dark cloud of death. Over 2,000 warships from 12 different worlds had gathered in the empty void between stars. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Admiral Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his reptilian eyes fixed on the tactical display. His scales were dark green and covered in battle scars from countless wars. The Saurian Empire had conquered 40 worlds in the past century, and today would add another to their collection. "The human colony grows stronger each day," said General Kixandra through the communication screen. Her insect-like face clicked with satisfaction. "If we wait longer, they might become a real threat." Velthar laughed, a harsh sound that made his crew step back. "Threat? These humans barely know how to leave their own planet. Their ships move slower than our cargo vessels." The alien fleet had been planning this attack for 6 months. Every species in the galactic unity had agreed that humans needed to be stopped before they spread to more worlds. The reports from their spies were clear. Humans had only basic weapons and weak shields. Their fastest ships took weeks to travel distances that advanced civilizations covered in days. Their colony on Kepler 442b has grown to over 3 million people, reported Commander Zixtal from his insect carrier ship. But their defense fleet has only 40 small ships. This will be easier than training exercises. The alien commanders shared the same thought. This was not a war, it was pest control. Humans were like insects that had gotten too comfortable in someone else's garden. Today the gardeners would arrive to clean up the problem. On the human colony of Kepler 442b, Commander Hayek stared at his sensor readings with growing fear. The numbers were impossible to believe, but the computers had checked them 20 times. The approaching alien fleet was larger than anything humans had ever seen. "Sir, the enemy fleet has over 2,000 ships," reported Lieutenant Minji from her station. Her young face was pale with worry. "Our entire defense force has only 40 frigates." Hayek had fought in space battles before, but never against odds like this. Each alien ship was bigger and more powerful than his best vessel. His 40 frigates were designed to fight pirates and small raiders, not massive invasion fleets. "Send word to all civilian ships," he ordered. "Begin evacuation procedures immediately. Get as many people as possible off the planet." The Colonial Defense Force scrambled to prepare for a battle they could not win. Their weapons were simple railguns and missile systems. Their shields were basic energy barriers that could stop small attacks. Against the alien fleet's plasma cannons and quantum weapons, they might as well be fighting with rocks and sticks. "How long until they reach us?" Hyuk asked. 6 hours, sir," Minji replied. "Maybe 7 if we're lucky." Hyuk nodded grimly. 7 hours to evacuate 3 million people with only a handful of transport ships. It was impossible, but they had to try. The alternative was too terrible to consider. Above the planet, the alien fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships arranged themselves in a massive wall of steel and death. The largest vessels moved to the center, their weapons already charging for the final assault. Admiral Velthar opened a communication channel to his fleet commanders. "Remember, we want this planet intact. Destroy the human ships, but avoid damaging the surface too much. This world will make a good colony for our people." "What about prisoners?" asked General Kixandra. "Should we capture some humans for study?" "Take a few if you want," Velthar replied with a shrug. "But don't risk any ships for it. These creatures are not worth losing good soldiers." The other commanders agreed. They had studied human biology and found nothing special about the species. Humans were weak, slow, and died easily. Their technology was hundreds of years behind the rest of the galaxy. The only mystery was how they had managed to build spaceships at all. "Begin the attack in 1 hour," Velthar announced. "I want this finished before dinner time." The alien fleet continued its approach, confident and relaxed. Many of the junior officers treated this as a training mission. Some even placed bets on how quickly the human ships would surrender or flee. Commander Hayek watched the enemy fleet grow larger on his screens. His small force of frigates had taken position between the aliens and the planet, but they looked like toys compared to the approaching armada. "Sir, evacuation ships are reporting problems," Lieutenant Minji said quietly. "We can only get about 50,000 people off the planet before the aliens arrive." Hayek closed his eyes for a moment. 50,000 saved out of 3 million. It was better than nothing, but not by much. He opened his eyes and straightened his shoulders. "Then we make sure those 50,000 escape," he said firmly. "Our job is to buy them time, no matter what it costs." His crew nodded with grim determination. They all knew this was likely their last battle. But they were soldiers, and they would do their duty even if it meant certain death. The alien fleet slowed as it approached the outer edge of the star system. Their sensors swept ahead, mapping every human ship and defensive position. The results confirmed what they already knew. This would not even be a fight. Human ships are moving to intercept, reported one of Velthar's tactical officers. 40 vessels, all frigates. Total mass less than one of our destroyers. Velthar looked at the display showing the human formation. Their ships were arranged in a simple battle line, like something from ancient history books. It was almost sad to see such primitive tactics. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Begin final approach. Weapons free in 30 minutes. The massive alien armada surged forward, eager to finish this simple task. 2,000 ships against 40. Advanced plasma weapons against primitive railguns. Quantum shields against basic energy barriers. The outcome was never in doubt. But as the alien fleet prepared to deliver the killing blow, none of them noticed the strange energy readings beginning to appear at the edge of their sensor range. Something was coming. Something that would change everything they thought they knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. The hunt was about to become something very different. The alien fleet was 20 minutes away from opening fire, when space itself began to act strangely. At first it was just small distortions on the sensor screens, tiny blips that the computer systems marked as errors. Then the distortions grew larger and more violent. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy spikes at coordinates 77 Mark IV, reported the Saurian sensor officer. His voice carried a note of confusion. The readings don't match any known technology. Admiral Velthar turned from his tactical display to look at the main screen. The view showed empty space, but his instruments were screaming warnings about something approaching fast. "Very fast. What kind of energy spikes?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It's almost like..." The officer paused, checking his readings again. "Like reality is being torn apart." General Kixandra's voice crackled over the communication system from her command ship. "My sensors show the same thing. Something is manipulating space-time itself. No known species has this technology." The distortions grew stronger. Space began to ripple and bend like water disturbed by a stone. Colors that had no names swirled in the void. And the very fabric of existence seemed to stretch and twist. Then, with a sound that was felt rather than heard, space ripped open. What emerged defied everything the aliens thought they knew about physics and engineering. A ship materialized from the dimensional tear, sleek, dark, and radiating power that made their most advanced sensors overload with warnings. The vessel was clearly human in design, but unlike any human ship in their intelligence files, while human vessels were typically boxy and functional, this one flowed like liquid metal. Its hull was so dark it seemed to absorb light, and strange energy patterns danced across its surface. "Impossible," whispered Commander Zixtal from his carrier ship. "Humans don't have dimensional technology. They barely understand faster than light travel." The mysterious ship settled into normal space with perfect grace. It was large, not as massive as the alien flagship, but big enough to house thousands of crew members. Energy readings from the vessel made every alien sensor array scream danger warnings. On the bridge of the newcomer, Captain Do-hyun stood calmly watching the alien fleet through his main screen. His uniform was human military, but the design was unlike anything worn by colonial forces. The fabric seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. "Full drive successful," reported Chief Engineer Tae-hyun from his station. "All systems nominal. We've arrived exactly where and when we intended." "Excellent," Do-hyun replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard as steel. "Lieutenant Soo-young, weapons status?" "All weapon systems online and ready," the weapons officer responded. "Dimensional cascade arrays charged to full power. Gravitational manipulation systems standing by. Reality anchor prepared for deployment." Navigation Officer Ji-won spoke up from her console. "Captain, the alien fleet has detected us. They're scanning our ship, but their sensors can't penetrate our dimensional shielding." Captain Do-hyun nodded. He had expected this. The aliens were using technology that was advanced by current human standards, but primitive compared to what his ship carried. They might as well be trying to examine a star with a magnifying glass. "Any response from the enemy fleet?" he asked. "They're confused, sir," reported Communications Officer Jin-hee. "Multiple command ships are exchanging signals. They can't understand our energy signatures or how we appeared. On his flagship, Admiral Velthar stared at the mysterious human vessel with growing unease. His tactical officers had been scanning the ship for several minutes, but their results made no sense. "Report," he ordered sharply. "Sir, the energy output from that single ship equals our entire fleet," the tactical officer said, his voice shaking slightly. "But that's impossible. No ship that size could generate such power." "Check your instruments again," Velthar snapped. "Human ships are primitive. This must be some kind of sensor ghost or electronic warfare." The officer checked his readings 3 more times, but the results remained the same. The lone human vessel was somehow producing more energy than 2,000 alien warships combined. General Kixandra's image appeared on the communication screen, her insect features twisted with concern. "Admiral, my ships are detecting the same impossible readings. This vessel doesn't match any known human design." "Then where did it come from?" Velthar demanded. Before anyone could answer, the mysterious ship opened a communication channel. Captain Dohyun's image appeared on screens throughout the alien fleet. He looked human, but there was something different about him. An air of quiet, confidence that suggested he had faced dangers these aliens could not imagine. "This is Captain Dohyun of the United Earth ship Retribution." His voice was clear and calm. "You have entered human space with hostile intent. I am ordering you to withdraw immediately." The alien commanders stared at the screen in shock. A single human ship was giving orders to their entire fleet? The arrogance was beyond belief. Admiral Velthar recovered first, his reptilian features twisting into what passed for a smile among his species. "I am Admiral Velthar of the Galactic Unity Fleet. You are outnumbered 2,000 to 1, human. Surrender now and your death will be quick." Captain Dohyun's expression didn't change. "You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal." The alien bridge erupted in harsh laughter. Even the most junior officers found the humans' demand hilarious. 1 ship against 2,000? It was like a mouse threatening a pack of wolves. 30 seconds? General Kixandra's clicking laughter filled the communication channel. "We'll give you 10 seconds to reconsider before we turn your ship into space debris." On the Retribution's bridge, tactical specialist Kyung Min quietly reported target acquisition. All enemy vessels locked. Optimal firing solutions calculated. Dimensional fold points identified for maximum effect. "Weapons ready in all configurations," added weapons specialist Nari. "Gravitational lenses charged. Reality manipulation systems online." Captain Do-Hyun watched the countdown timer on his command display. The aliens were still laughing and making threats, completely unaware of what was about to happen. He almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Time's up," he said quietly. The alien fleet opened fire first, as he had known they would. Thousands of plasma bolts, quantum torpedoes, and exotic energy weapons streaked across space toward the lone human vessel. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. Every screen in the alien fleet showed direct hits. The space around the Retribution filled with brilliant explosions as their weapons found their target. For a moment, the alien commanders celebrated what they thought was an easy victory. Then the energy discharges faded, and the Retribution remained exactly where it had been. Not a single mark showed on its dark hull. The ship hadn't even moved from the impact. The alien laughter died instantly. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Velthar. "Nothing could survive that much firepower." Captain Do-Hyun's voice filled the communication channels one last time. 30 seconds are up. What happened next would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned to fear humanity. The silence after the failed alien attack lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Admiral Velthar's reptilian voice cut through the communication channels, filled with rage and disbelief. "How is that ship still intact?" He roared at his tactical officers. "We hit it with enough firepower to crack a planet." The tactical officer's hands shook as he checked his instruments again. "Sir, the energy readings suggest they have some form of dimensional shielding. Our weapons never actually reached their hull." Dimensional shielding. General Kixandra's insect features clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among her species. "That technology is theoretical even for us. How could primitive humans possess it?" Admiral Velthar stared at the undamaged human ship on his main screen. The vessel hung in space like a dark omen, completely untouched by their massive attack. Its hull still absorbed light, and those strange energy patterns continued to dance across its surface. "Open another communication channel," he ordered. "I want to know what we're really dealing with." Captain Do-hyun's image appeared again on screens throughout the alien fleet. His expression hadn't changed. The same calm confidence, the same steady gaze. He looked like a man who had expected exactly this outcome. "Impressive shields, human," Admiral Velthar said, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. "But shields can be overwhelmed. You face 2,000 ships. Surrender now and we may allow some of your people to live as slaves." "I gave you a chance to withdraw peacefully," Captain Do-hyun replied. His voice was still calm, but now there was something cold in his eyes. "You chose violence instead." General Kixandra leaned forward on her command screen. "You're outnumbered and surrounded, human. Your single ship cannot possibly defeat our entire fleet. Be reasonable." On the Retribution's bridge, Navigation Officer Ji-won quietly reported fleet positions to her captain. "Enemy vessels have moved into standard attack formation. They're clustered in groups for maximum firepower concentration." "Perfect," Captain Do-hyun said softly. "They've made our job easier." Lieutenant Soo-young looked up from her weapons console. "Sir, dimensional cascade weapons are fully charged. We can target up to 400 ships in the first salvo." Tactical Specialist Kyungmin added his report. "Gravitational manipulation systems ready. We can create localized singularities at 12 target points simultaneously." "And the reality anchor?" Captain Do-hyun asked. Weapons Specialist Nari checked her exotic weapons display. "Ready for deployment, sir. We can lock enemy vessels in accelerated time fields at your command." Captain Do-hyun turned back to face the alien commanders on his communication screen. Admiral Velthar and General Kixandra were still arguing about terms of surrender, still believing they held all the advantages. "You speak of being reasonable," Captain Do-hyun said, interrupting their discussion. "Let me be reasonable with you. You came here to commit genocide. You planned to murder 3 million innocent people. You opened fire on my ship without provocation. Your people are a threat to galactic stability," Admiral Velthar snarled. "We do what must be done for the greater good." "The greater good?" Captain Do-hyun's voice grew colder. "You mean the good of 12 alien species who decided humans don't deserve to exist?" General Kixandra's mandibles clicked threateningly. "We're the advanced civilizations of this galaxy. We have the right to decide which species are allowed to expand. And we," Captain Do-hyun said quietly, "have the right to defend ourselves." He gestured to his communications officer. Jinhee nodded and cut the channel, leaving the alien commanders staring at blank screens. "Sir," Lieutenant Soo-young reported, "enemy fleet is repositioning for another attack. They're concentrating all firepower on our position." "Let them come," Captain Do-hyun said. "All weapons prepare for systematic deployment. We'll show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Admiral Velthar paced his bridge like a caged predator. The human ship's casual dismissal of their entire fleet was intolerable. No single vessel could stand against the combined might of 12 civilizations. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Maximum firepower, all weapons." "I want that human ship reduced to atoms." "Sir," his tactical officer said hesitantly. "Their shields completely stopped our first attack. Perhaps we should reconsider." "No." Velthar's claws scraped against his command console. "Nothing is invulnerable. Enough firepower will break any shield." Across the alien fleet, 2,000 warships charged their most powerful weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, quantum torpedoes that could phase through matter, exotic energy beams that disrupted atomic bonds. All of it focused on one target. General Kixandra's voice filled the fleet communication channels. "This is for the glory of the galactic unity. Fire!" The second attack was even more devastating than the first. The combined firepower of the entire alien fleet created a miniature star where the human ship waited. Space itself seemed to burn as exotic energies tore at the fabric of reality. The attack continued for 30 seconds, an eternity, in space combat. Every weapon in the alien fleet fired until their energy reserves ran low. The brilliant explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the energy finally faded, the alien commanders leaned forward eagerly to see the destruction they had caused. They expected to find empty space where their target had been. Instead, the Retribution sat exactly where it had before. Not only was it undamaged, but it didn't even appear to have moved. The human ship rested in space like an immovable object, completely untouched by forces that should have destroyed it completely. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Zixtal from his carrier ship. "No technology can withstand that much concentrated firepower." Admiral Velthar stared at his screens in growing horror. His tactical displays showed impossible energy readings from the human vessel. Power levels that should have torn the ship apart were being generated and contained within its dark hull. "What are we facing?" General Kixandra asked quietly. For the first time, her voice carried a note of fear. Before anyone could answer, the human ship began to move. It didn't accelerate like normal vessels. It simply appeared at different positions, as if space itself was folding around it. Captain Do-hyun's voice filled their communication channels one final time. "You had your chance," he said. "Now you face the consequences." What followed would be remembered as the most one-sided battle in galactic history. But for the aliens who lived through it, 4 minutes would feel like an eternity. The Retribution's attack began without warning or ceremony. One moment the alien fleet was regrouping after their failed assault, and the next moment reality itself became a weapon. Captain Do-hyun stood calmly on his bridge, watching the tactical display as his crew prepared to demonstrate why humanity had become something to be feared across time itself. Weapons Specialist Nari, begin with Dimensional Cascade deployment, he ordered quietly. "Target the enemy command vessels first." "Acknowledged, sir." Dimensional Cascade weapons firing now. The first minute of battle introduced the aliens to technology they had never imagined. The Retribution's Dimensional Cascade weapons didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they reached across space-time and simply erased their targets from existence. Admiral Velthar watched in absolute terror as the ships around his flagship began to disappear. Not destroyed, simply gone as if they had never existed at all. The massive Saurian heavy cruiser to his starboard side vanished between one heartbeat and the next. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where a kilometer-long warship had been moments before. "Report," he screamed at his tactical officer. "What's happening to my ships?" "Unknown, sir. They're not being destroyed. They're being removed from reality entirely. I can't detect any energy signatures or weapon traces." Across the fleet, panic spread as more ships disappeared. General Kixandra's voice crackled over the communication system, her normally controlled tone now filled with fear. "My entire forward squadron just vanished. How is this possible?" On the Retribution's bridge, Tactical Specialist Kyungmin calmly reported the results. "First wave complete. Enemy fleet reduced by 300 vessels. No damage to our ship." "Excellent," Captain Do-hyun replied. "Lieutenant Soo-young, deploy gravitational manipulation systems. Show them what happens when you control the fundamental forces of physics." The second minute brought a different kind of horror. The Retribution's gravitational weapons reached out across space and began creating artificial singularities throughout the alien formation. Entire squadrons of ships found themselves caught in gravitational fields that crushed them into points of light. Commander Zixtel's massive carrier ship, the pride of the Hive Collective's fleet, began to compress as invisible forces squeezed it from all directions. His screams filled the communication channels as his ship's hull cracked and folded in on itself. "The hull is collapsing," his engineering officer reported. "Gravitational forces are increasing beyond measurement." Within seconds, the carrier and its crew of 10,000 were crushed into a singularity, no larger than a marble. The point of incredible density hung in space for a moment before evaporating in a flash of radiation. Admiral Velthar felt his own ship shake as gravitational tides washed over the alien fleet. Lesser vessels were pulled apart by forces that stretched their hulls beyond breaking points. Others were compressed so rapidly that their crews never had time to scream. "Weapons Specialist Nari, demonstrate our defensive capabilities," Captain Do-hyun ordered. "Turn their own firepower against them." The third minute showed the aliens that the Retribution could use their weapons better than they could. The human ship began catching incoming fire and redirecting it through dimensional folds. Plasma bolts meant for the Retribution emerged from spatial tiers to strike alien vessels from impossible angles. General Kixandra watched in disbelief as her own quantum torpedoes, fired at the human ship, came out of nowhere to strike her escort destroyers. "Our weapons are attacking our own ships," she screamed at her tactical officer. "I don't understand how, sir," came the terrified reply. "The torpedoes are following their original programming, but space itself is folded around them." The human ship wasn't just redirecting individual shots. It was conducting an orchestra of destruction, turning the aliens' massive firepower into a symphony of self-inflicted devastation. Ships throughout the fleet found themselves being destroyed by their own weapons, fired by their own allies, guided by forces beyond their understanding. Navigation Officer Ji-won reported calmly to Captain Do-yun. Enemy fleet cohesion breaking down. They're starting to fire randomly, trying to hit something they can understand. Then it's time to show them something they definitely won't understand, Captain Do-hyun replied. Deploy the reality anchor. The fourth and final minute introduced the aliens to humanity's most terrifying weapon, the ability to manipulate time itself. The reality anchor reached out and locked enemy vessels in accelerated entropy fields. Ships that had been new and powerful began to age centuries in seconds. Admiral Velthar's flagship was caught in one of these fields. He watched in horror as his ship began to fall apart around him. Paint faded and peeled, metal corroded and cracked, systems failed as components aged beyond their design limits. Sir, we're experiencing rapid decay, his engineering officer called out as sparks flew from control panels that were rusting before their eyes. All systems are aging at impossible rates. The crew members caught in the field began to age as well, their scales growing dull and cracked as decades passed in moments. Some collapsed as their bodies experienced lifetimes of wear in the space of heartbeats. Throughout the alien fleet, the same scene played out on hundreds of ships. Vessels that had been the pinnacle of their civilization's technology crumbled to dust as time itself became a weapon. Crews watched their equipment fail, their hulls corrode, their friends grow old and die in front of their eyes. All weapon systems offline, weapons specialist Nari reported. Enemy fleet effectively neutralized. Captain Do-hyun surveyed the tactical display. Where moments before a mighty armada of 2,000 ships had threatened humanity, now only scattered debris and emergency pods remained. The entire battle had lasted exactly 4 minutes. Casualties on our side? He asked. None, sir, Lieutenant Soo-young replied. Hull integrity at 100%. All systems nominal. We took no damage whatsoever. The few surviving alien vessels that hadn't been caught in the weapon fields were already fleeing at maximum speed. Their crews broadcast desperate emergency signals to anyone who would listen, spreading word of what they had witnessed. Admiral Velthar, his body aged decades in minutes, managed one final communication from his dying ship. What are you? He gasped. Captain Do-hyun looked at the broken alien commander with something that might have been pity. We are what you forced us to become, he said quietly. We are humanity's answer to genocide. The Saurian admiral's ship finally crumbled completely, its ancient hull turning to dust that scattered in the solar wind. Around the battlefield, emergency beacons from escape pods created a constellation of defeat, the last remnants of the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. In 4 minutes, the balance of galactic power had shifted forever. The message was clear to any who would listen. Humanity was no longer prey. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Hyuk, watching from his colonial defense ships, could only stare in amazement at the impossible victory. A single human vessel had not just defeated the alien fleet, it had erased them from existence with casual efficiency. Sir? Lieutenant Minji whispered. Who are they? Commander Hyuk shook his head slowly. He had no answer, but he was beginning to suspect that humanity was much more than anyone had ever imagined. The battlefield was silent except for the soft beeping of emergency beacons. Where the mighty Galactic Unity fleet had once threatened humanity's future, now only debris and escape pods drifted in the dark. The Retribution hung motionless in space, its dark hull reflecting the distant stars. Commander Hyuk stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the impossible scene before him. His hands shook slightly as he tried to process what he had witnessed. 4 minutes. A single human ship had destroyed 2,000 alien vessels in 4 minutes. Sir, Lieutenant Minji said quietly, the unknown vessel is hailing us. Put them through, Hyuk replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Do-hyun's image appeared on the main screen. He looked completely calm, as if he had just completed a routine training exercise rather than the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Commander Hyuk, I presume? Captain Do-hyun said with a slight smile. I believe we should meet face to face. There are things you need to understand about what just happened here. Yes, of course, Hyuk managed to say. Should we dock with your ship? That would be best. Bring your tactical officer with you. What you're about to learn will change everything you think you know about humanity's place in the galaxy. An hour later, Commander Hyuk and Lieutenant Minji walked through the docking tube that connected their small frigate to the massive human warship. The walls around them hummed with power unlike anything they had ever experienced. Strange lights pulsed through conduits that seemed to bend space around them. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor that defied everything they knew about ship design. The walls curved in impossible ways, and the floor seemed to extend further than the ship's external dimensions should have allowed. Gravity felt normal but somehow different. More controlled, more precise. Captain Do-Yun waited for them with several of his officers. Up close, his uniform was clearly human military, but the design was unlike anything in current service. The fabric seemed to shift and shimmer with its own inner light, and strange symbols decorated the rank insignia. "Welcome aboard the UES Retribution," Captain Do-Yun said, extending his hand. "I know you have many questions. We'll answer all of them." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever, passing crew members who looked human but carried themselves with a confidence that spoke of incredible power. The technology around them was clearly far beyond anything the colonial forces possessed. Finally, they arrived at what appeared to be a briefing room. The walls were covered with displays showing star maps that included systems Hyuk had never heard of. In the center of the room stood a holographic projector that created three-dimensional images so real they seemed solid. "Please, sit down," Captain Do-Hyun said, gesturing to chairs that adjusted themselves automatically to perfectly fit their bodies. "What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to believe." Chief Science Officer Yoonji stepped forward, her face serious but kind. "Commander Hyuk, Lieutenant Minji, tell me, what year do you believe this is?" Hyuk frowned at the strange question. 2387, of course. Why would you ask that? "Because for us," Yoonji replied gently. "This is the year 2387, but we are not from your timeline. We come from approximately 500 years in your future." The room fell silent. Lieutenant Minji leaned forward in her chair. "That's impossible. Time travel is purely theoretical." Historical Officer Seung-ho activated the holographic projector. Images filled the air around them. Battles, destroyed planets, and scenes of devastation on a scale that was hard to comprehend. "In our timeline," Seung-ho explained, "the event you witnessed today played out very differently. The alien fleet arrived just as they did here, but there was no retribution to stop them. The holographic images showed human colonies burning, entire planets stripped of life, billions of people dying in ways too terrible to imagine." Hyuk and Minji watched in horrified silence as their species was nearly wiped from existence. "The Galactic Unity fleet succeeded in their goal," Captain Do-Hyun said quietly. "They destroyed this colony and 30 others. By the time humanity realized the full scope of the threat, it was almost too late." Engineer Youngji manipulated the display to show images of the war that followed. Desperate human ships fleeing from overwhelming alien forces, makeshift weapons built from mining equipment, children trained as soldiers because there weren't enough adults left alive. "We survived," Youngji continued, "but barely. The war lasted 200 years. By the end of it, only a few million humans remained alive in the entire galaxy." "But you won in the end?" Lieutenant Minji asked hopefully. "Eventually," Captain Do-Hyun replied. "But the cost was unimaginable. Entire generations grew up knowing nothing but war and fear. We became something harder, more ruthless than humanity was ever meant to be." The holographic display shifted to show images of future human technology. Ships that made the retribution look primitive, weapons that could destroy entire star systems, machines that bent reality to their will. Chief Technician Minho stepped forward to explain. "The war taught us that survival required absolute technological superiority. We spent centuries developing weapons and defenses that would ensure no alien species could ever threaten us again. We became very good at it," Captain Do-Hyun said with a grim smile. "Too good, perhaps. By the time we achieved victory, we had become conquerors ourselves. The galaxy learned to fear us as much as we had once feared them." Historical Officer Seung-ho showed more images. Alien worlds surrendering without a fight, entire species fleeing to distant galaxies rather than face human expansion. The Galactic Unity dissolved, and its member civilizations scattered to the cosmic winds. "This is why we're here," Captain Do-Yun explained. "We developed temporal manipulation technology to prevent our own dark future. We came back to ensure that the war which shaped us never happens." Commander Hyuk struggled to process what he was hearing. So you're saying that single battle just changed the entire course of galactic history? Exactly, Chief Science Officer Yunji replied. By demonstrating humanity's true potential now, we've prevented the need for the centuries of warfare that created us. The alien civilizations will think twice before threatening human colonies again. Lieutenant Minji looked around at the advanced technology surrounding them. But if you prevent the war, won't that change your own history? Won't you cease to exist? Captain Dohyun nodded slowly. That's possible. But we've made our peace with that outcome. If our sacrifice means that billions of humans get to live peaceful lives instead of growing up as we did, then it's a price we're willing to pay. The holographic display changed to show real-time communication intercepts from across the galaxy, panic-filled messages from alien governments, emergency council sessions, desperate calls for information about humanity's true capabilities. Communications Officer Jin Hee explained what they were seeing. Word of what happened here is already spreading. Every major alien civilization is reassessing their relationship with humanity. Some are calling for immediate peace negotiations. Others want to attack before we develop further. And the smart ones, Captain Dohyun added, are simply backing away and leaving human space alone. Lieutenant Colonel Sunwoo stepped forward with a datapad. Our temporal analysis shows that the timeline has been successfully altered. The war that created us now has less than a 5% probability of occurring. Commander Hyuk stood up slowly, walking to one of the viewing ports that showed the debris field where the alien fleet had been. So what happens now? Do you go back to your own time? Soon, Captain Dohyun replied. But first we have gifts to leave behind. Engineer Youngji activated another display showing technical specifications for defensive technologies, shield generators, and propulsion systems that were centuries ahead of current human science. We're transmitting these designs to every human colony in known space, she explained. Your people will have the tools they need to defend themselves and grow strong without the suffering we endured. Won't that change history in other ways? Lieutenant Minji asked. Chief Science Officer Yunji smiled for the first time since they had arrived. Yes, it will. But this time humanity will have the chance to become something better than what we became. You'll have our strength without our darkness. Captain Dohyun walked over to stand beside Commander Hyuk at the viewing port. The future is now in your hands, Commander. Make sure humanity chooses a better path than we did. As they watched, the Retribution's crew began preparing for their journey home to a timeline that might no longer exist. But their sacrifice had ensured that somewhere, somewhen, humanity would have the chance to reach for the stars without fear.